All right, so we're going to talk because a lot of people are saying Ferrari has the best chassis in F1, and every time I hear it, I kind of get annoyed because I like people are saying it, even if it's true, they're saying it as if it's just a given. Obviously, they have the best chassis. What we're going to talk on this show is that in some ways they do have the best chassis, but in some ways that best chassis would apply to the past, maybe to the ground effects era or to eras where we didn't have this algorithm-based driving, and that even if they do technically have the best chassis now, but maybe they're not beating Mercedes and McLaren because of the engine, their chassis comes with problems. And what people mean when they say they have the best chassis, basically, they've got a lot of grip, mechanical grip, and they've got supposedly the best aerodynamics, especially when you look at how the car is on high-speed corners and mid-speed corners, and also like I said before, their traction and grip, especially coming off of the corners. Those are supposed to be the high things, and I think all of that came when they changed their suspension to push rod. They're push rod now, right? FLIB.
Yeah, push rod suspension.
Yeah. So if you look at this car, it's kind of like what Red Bull was before. Very stiff, very pointy, a lot of grip, and a lot of and a lot of downforce. So yeah, compared to Mercedes, which focuses more on his engine, yes. Compared to McLaren, which focuses more on stability and suspension, yeah, maybe they do have the best chassis, but there's two problems, and we know it. When you have this pointy, grippy, this pointy front, and you have a stiff floor, the window is low. That's what happened with Red Bull. The window is low, which means that on a flat, we talked about this before, I feel like on a flat ideal track, they have the best for downforce and everything. But their window is very narrow. And we see it because when they don't get the right setup, especially with Leclerc, the car's pointy, the car has downforce, but it has handling problems with under and oversteer. So to me, if you have the best chassis, you can't say that you have the best chassis if you have problems with under and oversteer. And also, I think you can't say you have the best chassis if it's only dealing with a narrow window where there's peak performance, like somewhere like Japan, where there's no curves and everything. To me, the best chassis in F1 actually is McLaren, because McLaren has good grip and traction like Ferrari, maybe not as much, but what helps McLaren is their suspension and their flexibility and their ability to be stable on any track. So to me, a stable chassis is better than one that's aerodynamically superior and that's superior in grip and has a narrow window. What do you think of Falabi?
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, well, best chassis, I may not totally agree, but they have a very good chassis. And that's down to the fact that they were able to quickly drop the required weight to about 760 kilograms minimum.
Are you talking about Ferrari or McLaren?
I'm talking about Ferrari now. They were able to quickly drop it to 768. So the reduction of the weight, along with some of the other tweaks that we just mentioned, the suspension becoming push rod at both ends, has created a very stable aero platform for them. So this means that basically the car doesn't wobble or pitch unexpectedly, basically. I mean, we're looking at the old Ferrari and this Ferrari. So in retrospect, we can say, yes, it's a better chassis than the old one. But to say that it's the best, I mean, I think the McLaren chassis is really very formidable and very reliable. Yeah. So right now, we can't just say it's the best, but it's good compared to the previous.
And I would even say that the Mercedes is better because, let me tell you, because of our regs, the Mercedes chassis is built more towards engine power. And we know now that Ferrari is better on the corner speed. But its chassis is made for giving it straight line speed, which is more important now. So my argument is that if this was the Ferrari design for last year, it would be the best chassis when there was down ground effect. But we're moving away now where on the corners, it's not important to be fast because on the corners, you're harvesting. And now that all of the speed is on the straight. So it's been inverted. I think people, when they say Ferrari has the best chassis, they're still thinking about the past where we had V8 engines and we had low to the ground and everything. Now the cars are higher to the ground, and now straight line speed is more important. So engine power is more important. So relative to engine power, I would say Ferrari's pretty good. And it's just ironic because this was what was hurting Ferrari last year. They didn't have a platform that was good on low to the ground. Now they have a platform that's good to low to the ground, but it doesn't matter. What are your thoughts, Mr. Johnny, about how maybe Ferrari, they were trying to solve last year's problem, but it doesn't help this year's problem, which is integrated with software and also a powerful engine. So it's a little like too little, too late. What do you think of Mr. Johnny? Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually what happens to Ferrari lately. Ever since what's his name, Schumacher left, they're always like one step behind. They always seem to be one step behind. But one reason I think people think that they've got the best chassis though is because they're really fast out of the gate. They're really in starts they really jump out and they really make a lot of what is it. Uh, Speed at the beginning. So that makes, and then they're actually in a good position, at in the points. So that's what people are saying that Ferrari has the best chassis because it's
Yeah.
the movements that they make.
And I give them credit. The car does have a lot of grip. It's really explosive and fast, especially with the light turbo. But once again, it doesn't have quite as much top speed, and it also it clips earlier because it runs out of harvesting energy. What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, I also have a suggestion for Ferrari. Okay, like we know Mercedes, the and corners, and when it comes to technical tracks, in corners, coming out of corners, Mercedes are doing well because they have that they've got the power, to bring them out of corners, and then for McLaren, they can come out of corners. They don't have problem because they're stable in corners, coming out of corners because of their short wheelbase,
Yeah,
right?
you're talking about
So
Ferrari or McLaren? McLaren, yeah,
McLaren, yes.
yeah,
So I suggest that since Ferrari has a good aerodynamic, all they have to do is shorten their wheelbase, and then they'll just probably get the right car for the season.
yeah. But the problem is that with their whole setup, maybe doing that might mess up something somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? I feel like because there's another problem that Ferrari has, which is that they can't handle a lot of torque because of their software. So if they have a shorter wheelbase, that might affect them torque wise too. But I hear what you're saying. But the problem in engineering is that when you change one thing, because of the way the Ferrari car is set up, it may bring another problems elsewhere. What do you think of Falabi? Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean,
But
when
you're
you
right, Don. That's a good idea. But the problem is their car is different, so we don't know if they made that one change, if it would affect. Which is why unity is important. You have to take your whole design into before you make changes. Yeah. What do you think of Falabi?
Of course, it has to be holistic, and the design concept has to come with a lot of cohesion. Because, like you rightly mentioned, I mean, if you tweak something, it might just upset the apple cart, basically, and the net effect and the outcomes may be so large when it comes to race day. So, basically, what I just feel, it's a lighter car. The pushrod thing has made them more stable. Whether they're the
Yeah.
best chassis, I mean, it's a discussion for, that's
Yeah.
open to debate. But I think in retrospect, if you're comparing them to where they were before, it's a massive
A lot
improvement.
better.
Yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
better. But in terms of engine performance, especially on straights, they still come behind the likes of McLaren and Mercedes.
Yeah, yeah. And going back to what Johnny was saying with the wheel things, so there's a problem. Once I'll go back to it, it's a problem that Red Bull has too, in which Ferrari hasn't gotten their timing between their engine, the electrical part of the engine, and the chassis too. So if they have a narrower wheelbase, but there's unpredictable surges in
power.
power, then the narrow wheelbase would be worse because a wider wheelbase would be more stable in that.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about, Ferrari. So I
Yes.
think that's the problem because Ferrari's setup is so rigid that it's very sensitive to changes in the
And
electricity.
they have a narrow window to operate. I mean, there's very little to maneuver really. So it's just like that. And if what you said actually happens, I mean, they can begin to, that's the power surge. They can begin to experience the kind of problems that Red Bull is having right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why Red Bull made their car bulkier because of the problems with the power surges to make it more stable. Because you know what they're saying, Falabi and Johnny, they're saying Red Bull actually has the best engine and the worst chassis. Oh my God, Red Bull has and you know what's funny now? Red Bull won't get up. They won't get time for upgrades because the upgrades this year are based on who has the best engine and who has the worst. So because Red Bull has the best engine, they're not going to get upgrades for their engine. And the funny thing is Mercedes will get more because they said Mercedes engine is not as good as Red Bull. This is crazy. F1 has gone crazy, man.
Wow.
Red Bull actually has the best. Because remember, Fabi was saying during when Max set the standard in Bahrain testing, everybody said this car is going to be the shit. Remember, because that was early before the other cars had brought in their aerodynamics. But the reason Red Bull's chassis is so bad is because of the unpredictable surges. Yeah. Well, last start the Fabi, then we'll head out. Yeah, Johnny, your thing looks good. You look like Isaac Hayes, the singer. The black Isaac Hayes on stage. Go ahead. Yeah. You remember Isaac Hayes, right?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, Afolabi.
Yes.
Last thoughts, and we'll head out.
Okay, so
I'll end with this.
yeah, so
I'll end with
basically,
this.
in spite of the chassis design, which is undoubtedly very good, because the Ferrari engine isn't as efficient as Mercedes, they have to harvest energy more aggressively. The motor generator unit kinetic kicks in to recharge during braking, and it creates drag on the rear wheels. So this impacts their performance. So there's still a way to match up with Mercedes. Basically, that's what I'm rounding up with.
Ferrari, yeah. But I think, like I said, both teams need to watch out for McLaren because of that.
Sure.
Exactly. Because I have a feeling that McLaren is going to start taking
I think
over.
they can win this year.
They seem to
because
be
they have
best
wide.
I don't know about winning. I don't know about winning, but they're going to bump off Ferrari, off the where they are, because that's what I know. But I think
they already did that in Japan, where what's his name came second. Piastri came second.
Yes,
they've already begun to do it, and I think it's because the reason is because the McLaren car has more stability. But McLaren always focuses. Even last year, Red Bull was faster window, but McLaren is because of their suspension. They do well on any track. Yeah. But yeah, I think Mercedes may win this year, but I think by next year, Piastri and McLaren will be the fastest car because they're doing their upgrades carefully. All right, so Mr. John, you can head out. Me and Afolabi will talk about this crazy about Trump.
Okay.
All right.